Good evening and welcome to the Eldritch Avenue Podcast, documenting a lifetime of experiences with the ridiculous, the absurd, the unusual, the peculiar, and the sometimes unfathomable. I am your host, Joel Norman, sharing with you the many inexplicable happenings which have occurred to me over the course of my 57 years here on planet Earth. I will present my experiences of time spent on the Eldritch frontiers in 3 waves. The first wave stories will be the easiest for you to digest. These stories are non-threatening, easy to comprehend, and readily placed in reality. The second wave stories, though readily placed in reality, will be difficult to listen to, and only the empathetic mind will get through them. The third wave stories will look at these things all sane persons edit out of their conscious lives as they carefully curate the content of their reality. These are the things your mind will be desperate for you to avoid. These stories open wide that which is named the Eldritch, that being the otherworldly, that which is beyond. I have waited my whole life for the right moment to share my story about the Elvin secret stairs. It has taken 52 years to fully come to terms with it, but I am mostly at ease with the memories now, and that is a significant accomplishment in my opinion. I have worked diligently my whole life to maintain a skeptical mind. I have an open mind, but I need facts and peer-reviewed science in order to adopt a new perspective, really. That part of me was shoved sideways when I took my first walk on the Elvin secret stairs. Now, I have over the years attempted to confide in my family and friends about this, but no one was equipped to discuss my experiences with any degree of seriousness, and certainly not in depth. I was either shut down, ridiculed, or ignored. And I learned early on to just keep it to myself, because it was hard to get, ridiculed and made fun of and treated like a lunatic. So I just, to protect myself and my own peace of mind, I just kept it to myself. It seemed like that was my only option, really. And that isolation was not something that made life easy. I had only me to rely on emotionally, and so I supported me in this life because no one else had the wherewithal to be present for me in this respect, for the Eldritch Avenue, experiences, and certainly not the Elvin secret stairs. Now, I know they say no man is an island, but in respect to this reality, I am indeed an island, primarily because society's need to maintain the status quo had basically marooned me on a virtual desert island. And I have to say that I am about to share with you, what I'm about to share with you does in no way require your belief. In fact, I don't give a flying fuck if anyone believes me. Truly, I just don't care. It doesn't matter. I am in no way emotionally invested in anyone's opinions about me and what I have to say or offer. I've been through shit you wouldn't fucking believe. I know people like to say that, but for me, it's actually true. Mind you, I'm not telling my story to garner attention. I'm telling my story for my own mental health and hopefully to help others who have been through this same dark reality, because you see, this path is one you go down alone. No, nobody's there to help you. No one's there to lean on or support you. You're literally alone in the universe. And that is an incredibly broad expanse of perspective. You have no choice in the matter. It's just you, and you have to, facing that is part of the rabbit hole, why it's so difficult. But be that as it may, the Elvin Secret Stairs has many parts, and I really wanted my podcast to be about this topic primarily, but I have learned that life is not compartmentalized, and it is all one big friggin' merry-go-round, and you cannot edit out the Eldritch Avenues anymore. And tonight's episode is about a few of the many experiences with those who travel the Elvin Secret Stairs. And by that, I mean, legend talks about the Fae and the fairy folk, and I can imagine many of you know the tales. You've read or heard legends or whatever. This is the big rabbit hole, and it's the most serious one. Sure, it's great to be super positive, but life is not always easy, and you can't always just be like, I just stay positive, and that reality doesn't get to me. Well, sometimes reality reaches out and throttles you. Sometimes reality has a mind of its own. So I'm sure you've all heard about the Pentagon's revelations about UAPs since they declassified the UFO programs in 2017. Since then, many have come forward, including high-ranking officials and many U.S. military personnel, people whose statements on record cannot be ignored. The Elvin Secret Stairs are all about the occupants of the UAPs and their intrusion into my life. Many people's instinct is to believe that if they ignore the idea of UAPs, then they can curate and edit their reality, thereby effectively removing the UAP reality from their lives. Well, good luck. Bully for you if you can do that. I didn't have an option. I didn't have a choice. I'm a firm believer that this is not one of those things a person should ignore. I don't think we should ignore it any longer. I believe in being prepared, and now would be a really good time to start preparing to adapt to this reality, because I feel confident that we will all one day be face to face with it. And if you've not worked on your ability to cope with these things emotionally, then you will definitely come up against a serious crisis moment, and I shudder to think what that will be like for the unprepared. So, a little research to help make this a little more real, I guess I should say. As per the New York Times, who published a story entitled Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program, published in 2017. A 2009 Pentagon briefing summary of the program, prepared by its director at the time, asserted that, quote, what was considered science fiction is now science fact, end quote, and that the United States was incapable of defending itself against some of the technologies. So, Mr. Lou Elizondo, in his resignation letter to the Pentagon, said that there was a need for more serious attention to, quote, the many accounts from the Navy and other services of unusual aerial systems interfering with military weapon platforms and displaying beyond next-generation capabilities, end quote. He expressed his frustration with the limitations placed on the program, saying that, quote, there remains a vital need to ascertain capability and intent of these phenomena for the benefit of the armed forces and the nation, end quote. So again, he was saying that he had witnessed unusual aerial systems interfering with military weapons platforms. Okay, that is the Pentagon official. Okay, consider the research and the opinions of those who are involved with the reality itself, such as, again, Lou Elizondo, former Pentagon official, and Chris Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, both of whom have gone on the record repeatedly stating the need for further investigations of UAPs. And look it up. You can see their interviews and the documentation of their statements all over the place. So just go look it up. It doesn't get more real than that, in my opinion. But again, don't take my word for it. Do the research, corroborate. You can certainly find out that I'm telling you the truth. I highly recommend you do the research and read what the actual Pentagon officials have gone on record to state. I am choosing to tell the other side of this reality. Those things that come in the night and day, for that matter. Those things that can walk through walls and transport people from one reality to another, just like taking an escalator or a taxi. My experience with the Elvin secret stairs begins when I was 5 years old. Now, I'm a proponent of always taking memory with a grain of salt, and that you should always just be like, well, memories get altered, people forget, and then they try to remember or whatever, so I don't take my memories so seriously, especially like the memories from the distant past. But sometimes we remember things in a unique way, like if you're with a friend and like a childhood friend that you hadn't seen in a while, and you're sort of reminiscing, and they'll be like, oh, and remember the time that so-and-so did that so-and-so on that boat, and then you'll be like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. And you'll be transported back to that moment, and you'll be able to sort of see it in your mind again and be like, I totally forgot about that. And then, you hadn't thought about it until your whole life, but you remembered that moment, and you go back into it and you're like, I remember that. That's amazing. So memory in that way is sort of what I'm accounting now, what I'm presenting now. Parts like this one for sure. So my story begins. I'm very, very young. I grew up on a small farm in the middle of nowhere in eastern Iowa. And there's an old farmhouse. It was like an 1800s farmhouse. And my bedroom I shared with my brother, and my bed was in the northwest corner of the house. And as the bed was situated, as I lay in bed, I could see out the bedroom door to the hallway and then the staircase leading downstairs. And as a child, I had insomnia, like incredible insomnia all the time. It was just miserable. And one evening, I just had tremendous insomnia. Couldn't sleep, very anxious, just incredibly anxious, like almost bordering on fear, and I just couldn't sleep. I was like, what? I just was so frustrated and kind of not freaked out, but I was very, very anxious. I'm laying in bed. Why can't I sleep? Why can't I sleep? Why am I so afraid? And as I lay in bed, I could see out the bedroom door, because the bedroom door was open, and just outside the bedroom door, there was a window facing west, and there was enough light coming in the window from I don't know what the moon phase was, but there was some light coming in the window, and I could see the shears. I could see on the window, I could see the shears. I could see the frame of the window. I could see the door. I could see the hardwood floor. And then I could see the staircase beyond. Well, I could see where it dropped away to the staircase. That it was an enclosed staircase that went down to a landing and turned left and then went down to the first floor. And I'm just laying there and I'm just staring, out there looking at the pale moonlight on the floor and seeing, the shears kind of lit up. And it was late, probably. It was super late. I don't know. And I was really young. And this memory came back to me because it was just one day
a number of years ago, and I was home alone and didn't have to work the next day, and I just was sitting here having, a cup of tea, and all of a sudden I'm back in time, in bed, looking out the window, out the bedroom door in the hallway, and I'm like remembering this episode of having insomnia. And I also sleptwalked a lot as a child, and even as an adult, I've done a fair amount of sleepwalking. Up until a few years ago, I did a lot of sleepwalking. Anyway, this memory came back to me, and I'm like, remember, I can just see it all really clearly in my head. And I'm like, and I saw motion on the stairs. It was very dark, but I saw motion on the stairs, and instantly I was just deeply afraid, because it was 3 a.m. and everyone else is asleep in the house. And I couldn't hear the steps creaking, because that's what our steps did. Every single step in that old farmhouse creaked, no matter which one you stepped on. I mean, if you stepped all the way to the side, you might, if you knew the stairs well enough, you might be able to not make them creak. But no, it was just an old 1800s farmhouse. And there was no sound. But there was I was just instantly terrified. Had been this weird energy all day. And as it got closer to night and dusk, it got worse. And as soon as it got dark out, I was terrified. I was just scared. Well, I wasn't terrified, but I was feeling really scared. I was feeling escalated, and I didn't know why. And so as the motion became clearer, it looked like something was walking up the stairs. It looked like someone was walking up the stairs. But it was like this weird side to side sort of slow motion bobbing. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't how people move. It wasn't how anything moves. It was very smooth and very mechanical. It was like watching a recording of a movie, or it wasn't even that. I don't know. It was like a really slow motion car on a roller coaster going up a big hill, and it was bobbing and moving from side to side. And when it became apparent there was more than one, I saw, you could see the tops of the heads. And I was hyper afraid. I was hyper terrified at this point in time when the heads became apparent, and almost like a glimpse of almost a limb or an arm or something, a hand. I just was, and I was so terrified, and I was getting more and more terrified as the moment went by. And then the moment I saw the face come up over the edge of the top stairs, and I saw the eyes, I freaked. I was at such a heightened state of abject terror that my system freaked, and my whatever in the subconscious mind that shuts you down because of extreme fear, and I blacked out. When I saw those eyes, I just was. It's like I'd never seen anything like that before, and could not compute. I think I was probably 5 or 6. I don't know, 5 or 6, I'm guessing. I don't know, it could have been 8. I don't know. A long time ago. And I'm like, okay, this is still just a memory to me. But it came back to me in that one day a number of years ago, in the last 7 years, was it? So anyway, and I saw those dark eyes, and I freaked and blacked out. And of course, recall it later, and I just was sort of like, I feel like I remember that. I remember that. Now I can tell myself, oh, Joel, you don't know. You were just, did that happen? You don't know. That was so long ago, and you were so young, and did it actually happen? I'm like, I don't know, but that memory came back to me, and it felt friggin' real. And I saw my bedroom, and I saw the color of the woodwork, and I saw the two-tone brown shag carpeting on the floor, and I saw the shears my mother had hanging on that window. And I saw that, like in a farmhouse, that farmhouse I grew up in, the windows go almost to the floor, and the windowsills are all real low to the floor in that house. And I remember seeing, how that exact way it looked. And so that's why I've named it the Elvin Secret Stairs, because it's not something I could talk about. And I blacked out, and then of course the next day I didn't remember. I didn't remember anything the next day. I didn't remember that for a long time. There were a few times when that memory tried to resurface, and I just was like, oh no, not going there. Sorry. And I've had a lot of, wacky experiences, and I have seen a number of UAPs, and I've seen them with people. I saw a UAP in college with one of my roommates. I saw a UAP on the front porch of my residence here in Minneapolis with a coworker from the theater I worked at. We were sitting there, and I mean, I've had a lot of experiences, and the UAP phenomenon, or well, it's the unidentified aerial phenomena. It's kind of redundant to say UAP phenomena, but it's tied directly to, I mean, obviously there's someone piloting those things, and I have seen UAPs, and I had a lot of really weird experiences with other people, and then years later they're like, nope, didn't happen. And I kept having that happen, and anybody who I'd had to witness something with would just be like, nope, I don't remember that didn't happen. And they're like, walk away, or, say I got to go, or whatever. And people are like desperate to avoid this topic, especially if they've witnessed it. But the Secret Elvin Stairs series, this is part 1, and this sort of begins the whole story. After that experience, I did not have another memory of the phenomena until I was probably a few years later. And this is all just like my remembering, and, just having these memories come back, because I was at one point in time thought, like, can I get a therapist for this stuff? Because this is making me crazy. And I tried to find a therapist, and I tried to, there just isn't anybody out there. There's some people out there, but, I didn't get responses from some. And the one woman I did get a response from was like, she wanted to try and hypnotize me in a Zoom call. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And so there's, the isolation is pretty difficult, but I guess I'll just tell the stories. But the next event in the Elvin Secret Stairs series comes when I was a little bit older, probably 3 years later, and playing ball with all the kids in the neighborhood. We're playing baseball. We're doing it right on the road, which we never did. We did it on the gravel road right in front of our house, and we're all playing. We just decided, okay, we're going to play ball here. And we're playing ball, and everyone's having fun. And then all of a sudden, I'm on second base. I got a hit. I'm on second base, right? And I'm staring up the back road, watching the game, because I'm on second base and I got to watch and run. And then all of a sudden, everyone stopped yelling and cheering and playing ball. And they all turned around and just walked away. And they walked like they were going home. Nobody said, oh, we're not done. We're done playing, or I got to go, or we got supper time, or blah. No, they just turned around and walked away. And I thought, like, what's going on? Did I miss something? And then I look up, and my attention is drawn to a feeling of like, it's just drawn up. My attention is drawn up. And I see this chrome cylinder. I mean, I swear it was only the size of like a coffee tin, like a coffee can, but taller than like a coffee can. And it was just chrome. And it seemed to have lines on the side that went all the way around it. And it was spinning. And I just sort of like, the moment I looked at it, that's the end of the memory. And again, this is a memory that, I had avoided for a long time, and all of them you do. And it, that was the next one. And again, nothing, that was just odd, of course, and hard to place in reality. But the Secret Elvin Staircase has some pretty hefty experiences to it. And, I do have a few people who were with me at different times who can corroborate some of it. And it just, over the course of my entire life, there were just continued events along this theme of the Elvin secret stairs. Now, there was a period after I got older in high school, there wasn't anything that I recalled going on because I was super busy in student government and extracurricular and, of course, classes and stuff. And then I was out, with friends, at night on the weekends and stuff like that or whatever. So nothing happened. There were no memories in high school of anything. But then after I went to college, it started in again. And seeing, lights in the sky at 3 a.m., feeling like drawn outside, like suddenly waking up outside and looking up and seeing like something floating in the sky that then zips away, leaving a streak in the sky. And I remember looking at the streak, like, memorize this, memorize it. And it was just a streak in the sky that faded out, of course. But then I'm like, okay, this is real. This is happening, and that had happened with one of my roommates there too. Another time we'd been sitting out in the backyard and staring at the stars and trying to name the constellations. And we were out there like all night long. And it's like well after 2 a.m. And at the exact same moment, my roommate and I say, I've been staring at this one star. And it's one of those moments where you would say, jinx, right? Because you both said the exact same thing at the exact same time in the exact same way. We both looked at each other, and then we looked back at the star, and it was just this one bright light in this triangle of stars. And then it started to move. And it just glided super smoothly across the sky. And we were just like, I just stared like, oh my God, I've been staring at that star for like 3 hours at least. We were just talking, like you do when you're young and in college. You philosophize, you talk about all kinds of stuff because you're making new friends and it's college and this is what you do. And then we just as we sat there laying on this blanket staring up at the stars and talking, about whatever, I just happened to fixate on that star. And lo and behold, my roommate had done the exact same thing. And we discovered this together. And in that moment, that star started moving. And like I said, it did this. It started gliding smoothly to the left, to the right. And then it started doing like this spirograph motion where it was just zipping at really sharp angles back and forth in a kind of spirograph blender motion kind of pattern. And it was just insane. And then it goes screaming out of sight in the opposite direction. Left a streak in the sky. And I was just like, oh my God. And that one I'll never forget either. Now, I've talked to that roommate after we reconnected. And I'm like, hey, do you remember blah, blah, blah? And she was just like, nope. And she just like, that was it. And we were communicating online in a chat room. And then she's like, no. And then she, hung up on the chat room. Like she signed off. And I was like, okay. So, unfortunately, people don't want to talk about it, and it's not taken seriously, I think, because everybody's like, that's not real, and I'm just going to make fun of it, and then my instinct is telling me that that's the way I should do this, because then it won't bother me. But, I think it's becoming more prevalent, and especially if the Pentagon admits that there's something going on, I think, then I feel safe, like, in sharing my stories. There's a number of those to come, and the Elvin Secret Staircase does continue, and it goes on to, a lot of other stories involving being in upstate New York at Whitley Strieber's cabin. That's probably the most intense one. There was another one when I was home visiting my folks in Iowa. There's been several at the farm, and ones where my parents would ask me the next day, like, what the hell happened? Did you hear that? Did you see this? There's some serious stuff to come yet on the Elvin secret staircase. Just like really intense stuff. So I will be sharing that in part 2 of the Elvin secret staircase. The Elvin secret staircase is going to have multiple parts. And I want to keep the podcast down to about half of an hour. So I'm going to go ahead. Looks like I'm coming up on 27 minutes. So I'm going to cut off for today. Next time on the Eldritch Avenue Podcast, we will have part 2 of the Elvin secret staircase. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening and for allowing me to walk with you down Eldritch Avenue.